Thank you so much for joining us today. We're going to be covering an interesting topic today. We're going to be talking about how to get less unwanted calls and text messages. I know with these webinars, we try to cover as relevant and practical of topics as we can, just to help you all in just your everyday lives. And this topic specifically, when I've been out doing presentations, I hear a lot of people are getting text messages and different things like that. So I really hope that this presentation will be a a good resource to you all, because I know it definitely can get obnoxious and tiring to get these calls and text messages. So while it's very difficult to completely eliminate these calls, we definitely are going to be covering some free resources that can help you reduce those by quite a lot. The agenda for today is we're going to be first talking about what's been happening, some statistics about those unwanted calls. We're going to look at what those scams may look like. We're going to also talk about some steps that you can take to get less unwanted calls. We're going to then talk about what the do not call registry does. And then we're going to be talking about some enforcement steps that are being taken against these scam callers and different things like that. And then finally, we're going to finish out with some resources for you all. So let's get right into the thick of it. So what's been happening? All this information is from the Do Not Call Registry for South Carolina from 2024. And this is just showing the number of complaints that have been filed to the Do Not Call Registry about scam calls and different things that they've been getting. And so you can see that even from 2023, those complaints have gone down. So you can just kind of see the trend that's been happening there. Some of the top categories that people have been complaining about that have the nature of these phone calls they've been getting is firstly medical and prescription scams. That's somebody pretending to be a medical organization or prescriptions, different things like that. Debt reduction calls, and then finally imposter calls. And we'll cover what imposter calls look like in a little bit. Now, the Federal Trade Commission put out these statistics in 2024, and they recorded that in the United States, over $900 million were lost to phone scams just last year. And these statistics do not include the text message scams that we're grouping together today. And those scams have been the highest per person loss. So of the different scams, the phone scams are the ones people are losing the most to per person. And that median loss is around $1,500 per person. And that's just the median. So, I mean, that number could be much higher or much lower depending on the person and how much information is given away. So this is still a very real issue. And I know all of us can talk from experience about the different calls that we've been getting that appear to be scams. And so we're going to move ahead and talk about what those things kind of are looking like. And I'm sure that a lot of you are going to be able to identify and share your own stories about scams that look like the ones that we'll talk about. So what do they look like? They are going to be using this scam tactic called spoofing. And this is where a scammer pretends to be someone else by masking how they're contacting you. So whether they mask that with a government number or something like that, they're just masking their original phone number with something else so that you trust them and answer the phone. And when it comes to phone numbers, they cover their phone number by making your caller ID show any number that they choose. There's the common form of this is called neighbor spoofing. And this is where the scammers will use a local area code to make you think that it's maybe your neighbor trying to call you or somebody in the community. For myself personally, I still have a Minnesota phone number. And so I get a 218 phone call and I think, oh, maybe it's somebody from my hometown trying to call me. And it turns out that a scammer has just used that area code to mask their phone number to get me to answer the phone, thinking that it's somebody that I know. And oftentimes, these scammers may pretend to be a company or a government agency when you answer the phone, and they're going to make different demands and stuff like that. Now, some ways that these calls show themselves is firstly, imposter phone calls. Now, our agency actually had this happen to us back in 2023, where somebody was calling residents of South Carolina claiming to be from our agency. And they were saying that they were following up and looking into solar panel sales. And they were asking the different individuals that they were calling for personal identifying information. And so we put out this press release notifying people that this was not us. It was somebody pretending to be us in order to get people's personal information. And just for future reference, we're never going to be making calls like this. We won't be calling you out of the blue asking for personal information unless there's been some sort of dealings that we've been working with you in the past. The FTC, the Federal Trade Commission, had this happen to them in 2025. They put out this press release notifying people that a scammer was impersonating an agent, an FTC agent, and was asking people for personal information and demanding different things. And so these scammers are going to impersonate anyone that they can to make you trust them. Um, and for future reference, a government agency is not going to be calling you out of the blue. Either they will visit you in person or they will send out a notice through certified mail. So if you're getting phone calls pretending to be a government agent or pretending to be a police officer, the IRS, whatever it is, and they're demanding things from you on the phone, make sure you hang up on those people and call a number that you trust to get the police department or whoever it is and ask them about the information that the scammer is or the impersonator is claiming. And so just verify those things. The next one is spam text messages. I know all of us get quite a few of these. The first one here is somebody texting pretending to be the UPS. I know I've gotten a lot of these text messages, and the UPS is texting and saying that there was some sort of incorrect shipping address and that you need to update that information. Well, if you follow that link that they have embedded there or call a phone number that's included, it's going to be received by a scammer on the other end of the line, or it's going to be a fake website, and they're going to start asking you to put in personal information or different things like that. I know one that's really common is the text message claiming to be the South Carolina toll roads, claiming that you have gone through a toll booth and didn't pay when you went through. And then they're asking you to pay a smaller amount or else you're going to be charged a lot more. And these entities are not going to be texting you. They're going to be sending you a certified letter if you've actually run through a toll booth. And I think there's even only one toll road in South Carolina. And so the likelihood of you going through that toll road is kind of small, but they spread those out to everyone trying to get people hooked that way. Some of those other spam text messages may look like a wrong number. It may start out with somebody just texting out of the blue saying, "Hi, how are you?" or "Meet for coffee." Um, and then you're going to respond, "Who is this?" And they'll introduce themselves, and it'll apparently be a wrong number. But then they're going to try to build some sort of relationship. The screenshot that I have on the right is actually a text message that I got personally last year, and I get this random text message, and the person was asking for someone named Mike. Well, my name is Andrew, so there's not going to be, they say that it was a wrong number. And so we went through this discourse, and you can see that this person kept trying to get more and more information and build a relationship with me, asking where I'm from or different things like that. And so then eventually they may ask me to do some sort of investment, or something's going to lead into them asking for personal information. So it's important to uh, ignore those text messages that are coming in that you can't verify, and not interact with those messages, because a lot of times those are scams. It's not actually a person with a wrong number. It's better just to ignore them and block them. Robocalls. Um, these are usually recorded messages instead of a live person. And these oftentimes are used to try to sell something. But if a robocaller is trying to sell you something, this is illegal unless you have given written permission to somebody that you will receive those types of calls, because it's illegal for companies to use robocallers to make sales calls. Some robocalls that are allowed without your permission. The key thing is that these robocallers cannot be used to make sales pitches to you. Now, your doctor's office can use a robocaller to send you a message to remind you of an upcoming appointment. I know when I was with a different dentist, they would send me a robocall notifying me that I had an appointment that week or something like that. And so those are legal uses of robocalls, things that people can actually do. So we've gone through a variety of these different things, and I'm just going to throw up a poll real quick. And I just want to ask if any of you have received a spam call or text message like this week, like the ones that we've covered. And you can go ahead and enter those questions in, and I'll show you the results there. Now, it's kind of funny. When I first started working for the Department of Consumer Affairs, it seemed like the number of scam calls and text messages I got bumped up all of a sudden, which is kind of ironic because I'm teaching people about scam calls and then I myself are getting them. So it gave a good training ground for the different scams that we've been talking about. All right, I'm going to end this poll and share some of the results. So you can see that I think we all expected to see this. A large majority, over 78% of you, have received some sort of call like this. So they're out there, and just you're not alone. Other people are dealing with this too. So let's look further into what type of scams, what things you can do to stop these calls from happening. So we're going to go over 4 simple steps that you can take to try to reduce the amount of calls and text messages that you're getting. Some of these may be no-brainers. You're just like, this is something that I already do, or you may not think that this works. But please give me an opportunity to share some of this stuff, and hopefully they can be things that you can use or share with people that you know are dealing with these different types of calls. So our first step: don't answer or respond to these messages. This is probably one of the most effective ways that you can reduce those calls. Now, why is this? This is because whenever you answer the phone or respond to a scam text message, this signals the caller or texter that that line is active. And even if you don't fall for the scam on the phone, whenever whatever they are selling you still gathers that you have an active line and that you will answer it. They will then put a green check mark next to your phone number, knowing that somebody will answer it, and they will sell that number to other spam callers, and you will get more calls, because they would much rather call a line that they know somebody's possibly going to answer, rather than wasting their time calling numbers that aren't going to answer them. And I know there are a lot of people, I've heard a lot of stories about individuals who like to answer scam calls and then mess with the scammer on the other side of the line, whether they play loud music or they play radio static or they say that they're the police department. But recently, the FCC, on a webinar that I was listening about unwanted calls and text messages, they highly recommended that people do not harass these scam callers. This is because scammers can become vindictive and vengeful, and they will start using your phone number that you are messing with them on, and they will use that number in other scams that they perform. They will use your phone number to mask their calls. And the result of that is that somebody may try to call back a scam number, and you will get really angry phone calls from people being like, "Why are you calling my phone? You scammers need to stop this," whatever. I know this personally happened to me when I missed a phone number. I called back the number thinking that it was somebody that I knew, and I got a very angry gentleman on the other line side of the phone. Apparently, somebody had used my phone number in a spoofing call, and this individual was very upset that I was calling him. And so I just hung up with him. So it's best to not answer those phone calls, because you don't know what the result of it is. And the best case scenario is that the scammers think that your phone line is abandoned and they won't call it anymore. So number two, use the call blocking resources that you have available to you. Now, there are dozens, if not hundreds, of call blocking resources out there. And here are some key things to keep in mind. When it comes to call blocking for mobile phones, look into your device and see what built-in features that your phone already has. You can also contact your carrier to see what things that they offer. And there may also be call blocking apps that you can get. But it's important to do your research and look at the reviews, read the fine print, and see how they are actually blocking those calls. A really good resource that you can use that's already built into your phone is when you go into your settings for your phone number or for your caller app. If you go into the settings, you can select block unknown numbers. Then your phone will automatically block any number that is not saved to your contact list that you have created in your phone. And so this way, if a phone number comes in that is not in your contact list, your phone will not ring, and it will go straight to voicemail. And now those voicemails may be stored in a spam folder in your phone, so you're going to want to be checking those once in a while in case a legitimate number comes through. Another really good option that I was researching just before this webinar was the do not disturb feature on your phone. And so if you have the correct settings, you can go into your phone, into your do not disturb settings, and you can go into the people section of that do not disturb, and you can select only allow people who are in my contacts list to call me. So then after you make that setting, people who call you who are not saved to your contacts list, your phone will not ring. Now, it may show up on your phone screen that that someone is calling, but your phone won't actually ring. Well, then that will go to voicemail. So then only the people who are in your contacts list will be able to make your phone ring, so you know that it's ringing. So that'll reduce the amount of obnoxious times that your phone rings and different things like that. So that's a really good resource for you. Now, for landlines, I know my parents still have a landline in their house. And so some resources for you if you have a landline and you're getting called is that you can install a call blocking device, something that plugs into your phone. And same with those apps that we were talking about for mobile phones. It's important to do your research and look at the reviews and the fine print to see how those calls are actually being blocked and how the program works. Now, if your phone is connected to the internet, there may be other options for you there. And so you're just going to want to contact your carrier to see what type of options that they have. Now, you're going to be wanting to ask if these are resources that you have to pay for or if they're free. So just things to keep in mind for those. And I've put this link in the webinar in this PowerPoint that'll be included in the chat. And this is a link to the FCC's website where they have a bunch of call blocking resources for you. And if you scroll down the page, you'll find a list of providers such as AT&T, Verizon, whoever your provider is, and you can click on that and it's a link to their website where they will talk you through the different options that they have there. So that's a good resource that you can go and look into later. All right, our step number 3, sign up for the Do Not Call registry. Now, before you say that the registry doesn't work, please hear me out and let's discuss this and look into it a little bit deeper before we completely disregard this option, because this is a really good resource that is free for you to use. And so, it's not going to block all of the calls, but let's look into it a little bit deeper on what the registry actually does. So, the registry is housed inside the Federal Trade Commission, so that it's a part of the FTC. It was created in 2003 to stop unwanted sales calls. Now, that's going to be the key term when using the Do Not Call registry, sales calls. And so this is a free resource where you can register any phone number that is in the United States. And after you sign up for this registry, you may still receive calls up to 30 days afterwards. And that's just giving a buffer for their network to update and different things like that for your number to be registered. Now, what are the rules of the Do Not Call registry? And this is for telemarketers in general. So telemarketers cannot call before 8 a.m. or after 9 p.m. They cannot be deceptive or abusive or lie about the terms that they're offering. They cannot ask you to pay with cash-to-cash money transfer. They can not ask you to pay by giving the PIN from a reloadable gift card or credit card or debit card, excuse me. They can ask you to pay by asking for your bank account information to create a type of check that you'll never see or sign. And this is called a remotely created payment order. And so those are things that they cannot do. They also must connect a sales representative within 2 seconds of you answering. So if they've got a robocaller on, it has to transfer over to a sales representative within those 2 seconds. They must transmit their phone number and, if possible, name onto your caller ID. So they can't use those spoofing methods. They have to be able to project those things. They have to tell you right away if what they're selling or what charitable organization they're representing, and what the call is, and if that call is a sales call or a charitable solicitation. They also must disclose all the material and information about the goods or services that they're offering and the terms of those sales. And they must get your permission to charge you or to use a particular account number if you are doing a transaction with you. So if they end up selling something that you want, then you can go ahead and they have to give you have to give them permission before they can charge you for those different things. So now, what does the registry not do? The registry does not apply to every unwanted call. It does not stop calls from political organizations, charities, debt collectors, informational calls, people taking surveys, and scammers. So basically, the registry is focusing on legitimate, law-abiding businesses that use sales calls and telemarketing as part of their business. And for political organizations, charities, different things like that, if they are not selling something, then they're allowed to make those calls. So why should you still sign up? Well, it will stop those legitimate sales calls that you may be receiving. So it will reduce that number of unwanted calls even more. Um, it will give you a good idea of if someone is a scammer or not. I think this is one of the best uses of this resource because if you don't recognize the number or the caller ID, you don't pick up because it's not going to be a legitimate sales call. And if you pick up and the caller on the other end violates any of those rules that we just talked about, then hang up and report that number. Because if it's a legitimate business and they're making those calls, then they are breaking the law and need to be reported. So, kind of a silly illustration for this. It's gardening season right now. I know the gardens here in South Carolina and around Columbia are just loving the rain and the sunshine. And a big part of gardening is pulling weeds. And for myself, when I was younger, I had a really hard time weeding the corn rows in my family's garden because I couldn't tell the difference between the young corn saplings and the grass weed that was around it. And we always got the Farmer's Almanac when I was growing up, and there were some funny stories within that almanac. And a piece of advice that they gave was that if you can't tell the difference from what the corn and the weeds are, pull them both out. And whatever comes back, you can be sure that's the weed. And so that's kind of the same thing with these do not call registries. If you pull out all of the calls at once, the ones that come back are breaking the law are usually those scam calls. And so it's a good identifier of those different things. Now, how can you sign up for this resource if you're interested? You can visit the Do Not Call. You can visit donotcall.gov, or you can call this 888 number and you can ask them to put you on there. You can register more than one number, but you can only put 3 numbers in the system at a time. So once you first go in there, there's going to be a place where it says, I want to sign up for the Do Not Call registry, and it'll give you slots for 3 phone numbers. But once you reach that 3 phone numbers, you're going to have to submit it and then open it up again to submit more numbers at a time. And for more questions that you may have about this system, you can definitely go to the donotcall.gov website, and there's a place where there's a bunch of frequently asked questions that you can ask. Now, finally, our 4th step to reducing those unwanted calls and text messages. Block and report numbers as they come in. Now, this will block numbers that are coming in at the time and will work on legitimate robocalls, but it may not work on people who are spoofing phone numbers, like those scams that we were talking about, where they use a different phone number to mask their actual phone number. And so you can also report those text messages to the FTC by texting it to 7726, or the numbers that are associated, or the letters that are associated with those numbers are spell out spam. So it's pretty easy to remember. And basically, when you report these numbers to the FTC, this gives them more ammunition to use when they are looking to track down those illegal call centers or scammers, because there are ways for them to track those numbers. But the more numbers that they have, the more lines to a specific place and more evidence that they have to bring to prosecute people who are doing calls illegally. And so you can forward those things to the FTC or do it on their website. Now, how do you delete and report those phishing text messages. So here's an example of an iMessage text message. This is a scam pretending to be the post office. And most often, when you get that first text message, you'll get this little option down here in the bottom that says report junk. And if you click that, it'll give you this screen. And you can either just delete it or you can click delete and report junk. And so that will delete the item, but also report it as junk. And then there are options to block those numbers as well. Oftentimes with Androids, if you get a scam text message for the first time, a box will pop up at the top of your screen instead of the bottom at the above your text message, and it will say block and report or something like that. And so you can do that and it'll go through the same steps. Now you may be wondering, okay, there's all these things. I'm doing all the things that I can to block these numbers. But what is actually being done about all of these phone calls, and what type of enforcement is being taken place? So I went on to the Federal Communication Commission's website and looked at what they've been doing to stop these phone numbers. And these are some fairly recent press releases that I found about the steps that they've been taking to cease these unwanted calls. So you can see in this one on the left, in 2025, just this last May, they ordered a provider to cease transmitting jury duty scam calls. And so basically they found the numbers that those were coming from, and they took those off their network. So they took steps to cut those off to make sure those scams weren't going through that specific provider. In 2023, they also notified a U.S. telecom service provider to take steps in order to terminate bank impersonators who are making scam calls. So, and there are a few more different examples of how this is being done. And so when you're submitting and reporting these different things, it's giving them ammunition and evidence to bring before these different providers to make those things stop. If you're interested in reading more about these articles, I've included those links in an additional resource page. And you can go ahead and read those and look at some of the other things that the FCC is doing to stop those phone numbers. So some additional tips just to remember as we're closing up. Be careful about giving out your mobile number to people. So whether that's like games or online apps where it's asking for personal information, maybe you don't want to be giving out your phone number for everything. If you do give it out, be sure to read through the web forms and check for privacy policies before submitting that personal information, because the company may have in their policy the right to give your information to sell your information to other businesses or other platforms. And you should always be able to opt out of receiving text messages. And maybe that comes through you just texting stop to the auto texter that's texting you about some sort of pre-approved offers, different things like that. So you should always be able to have that option. If you don't, you should think about reporting that text message organization. Some other resources that I've included in this presentation is an article and just landing page for the FCC about how to stop unwanted robocalls and text messages. There's also a phone complaint system. We covered those statistics at the beginning of the presentation. And these are just some things, some ways that you can report phone calls and you can file a complaint with them. Now, I've had other people who have wished that I was able to play a recording of a robocall scam and give an example. So while it's difficult for me to play a video through the PowerPoint, I was able to find a website on the Federal Trade Commission site where there are examples, a bunch of recordings of what robocall scams sound like. And there's a link to that right at the bottom of that list. So feel free to go and listen to some of those and get familiar with some of those different robocall scams. Let's look at a roadmap to avoiding scams. And this is both phone call scams and just other scams in general. Firstly, don't answer calls or respond to text messages from numbers that you don't know. Block these numbers as they come in. Secondly, don't give personal or financial information for a request that you didn't expect. Legitimate businesses do not call you out of the blue asking for personal information. Thirdly, don't fall for high pressure tactics. Anyone who is pressuring you to make a decision, pay, or give over personal information is a scammer. Legitimate businesses are going to have a window that you can accomplish certain things, but they're not going to be pressuring you hard to do those things. So if you get that, hang up on them. Know the forms of payments that scammers like to use. Beware of prepaid gift cards, cryptocurrency, and wire transfer. If somebody's asking you to pay in any of these methods, it's a really good indicator that that's a scam. And finally, stop and talk to somebody that you trust. Before you do anything, tell a friend, family member, or neighbor what is happening. It's really good just to slow down, maybe hang up on the person and talk to somebody that you know and just kind of explain what's been going on. And maybe they can warn you about if it's a scam or not. Some takeaways. My favorite thing about eating out is being able to take home a takeaway bag. So here's some things that you can take away from this presentation. Don't answer unfamiliar phone numbers. Let them go to voicemail. That's your best defense. And it's one of the cheapest things that you can do. Secondly, government or state agencies will never cold call or text you. And that includes the police, the IRS, and the post office, and many others. They're not going to be calling you out of the blue for no reason. They're either going to be visiting you personally at your home in person, or they're going to be sending you certified mail. So if somebody's calling you asking for personal information, saying that you missed jury duty, saying that they're going to get arrested, just know that those are scammers trying to get you emotionally worked up. And finally, go ahead and register for the Do Not Call registry. It's free, it's really easy to do, and it's just an extra layer of um, reduction that you can make to those unwanted calls. And use those call blocking methods that we talked about. I think after this webinar today, I'm going to go in and set up my phone for the do not disturb option because I think that's a great resource. Um, just to allow the phone numbers in my contacts, the ones that I really want to contact me to get through, and everything else will go to voicemail. Now, if you have already answered a phone call and you've given over personal information and you think that you may be a victim of identity theft, feel free to call us at 1-800-922-1594 or go to our website at consumer.sc.gov. We would love to be able to help you through that process. I hope you guys have a great rest of your Wednesday and hope you stay cool. And we'll see you next week. Bye.